a long meeting.
Oh. Yeah, exactly. What tricks have we got up our sleeve?
I'm sure you will all assist, members. Welcome, everybody.
Vain hope.
Good call. Getting lots of quips. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Auckland Development Committee of Auckland Council, 10th of September, and duly opened. Welcome to the members, welcome to the public that are in attendance, and all our staff in support of the members here today. We might have some local board members joining us later on. Welcome Independent Māori Statutory Board member David Taupari, and I think we'll have member Glenn Wilcox join us shortly as well. So firstly, apologies. Have apologies from the Mayor and Councillor Wood away on council business. Councillors Casey Filipaina, Member Namani, the Deputy Mayor, and Councillors Webster and Walker for early departure.
Only if you don't finish by
if they get here first.
I've got another meeting.
I'll move, take the point. Please tell them that directly. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Brewer. All those in favour say aye. Contrary no. Declare that carried. Item 2, declaration of interest. Any declarations of perceived or actual interests on any items, members? Put them on the table now, please.
$3.
There being none, I'll go to 3 and I'll move the confirmation of the minutes for 13th of August. Do I have a second? Councillor Penrose, thank you. In favour say aye, contrary no. Declare that carried. Petitions, there are none to my knowledge. And then we go to public input. And I have a request as of early yesterday from Dr. Joel Cayford to speak on the matter as outlined. And I welcome Dr. Joel Cayford up to the microphone. And just for clarification, Joel, I know we all know we're in process of a private plan change down there and also a road closing notice, both statutory processes. And just to let all the members know, I've reminded Dr. Cayford of the parameters of public submission at this point, and Dr. Cayford has told me that he is neither a submitter, not a submitter on these matters. Joel, with you.
I'm just waiting for a... thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for the opportunity. I just noticed the words that went with that item, for and on behalf of, is that I'm not speaking for or on behalf of. It's kind of not for or on behalf of the organisations. So I'm really here as someone who's taken an interest in down there and in downtown, and I'm really talking about some risks that appear to be on the horizon for council, and I want to talk about those to council. This is a slide that I picked up to kind of, so we're talking really about playing by the rules down here. Skyscraper City and various other places around the world are interested in what is happening. What I'm going to talk about is this, it's really a heads up for councillors about what's happening now. 50 years in a flash, what rules apply and who cares. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the guts of the public issue that is arising. So just in terms of what's happening now is that councillors, and I've been aware of this as well, of course, but councillors are aware that you've been considering the downtown planning for some years because the CRL is going to run through there, and there's a lot of support for the CRL out there. But it was in July 2015 for the first time that formal public submissions were called for about one aspect of the downtown development. Private Plan Change 79 was promulgated, notified, seeks to change the zoning over Queen Elizabeth Square. It's publicly notified under the RMA, you'll know about that. And the second thing that happened, you may not be so aware of that, Auckland Transport issued a road stop notice over Queen Elizabeth Square under the Local Government Act. Auckland Transport is the road controlling authority in the Auckland region now, not the council. So it needed to issue that in order to proceed with the sale of Queen Elizabeth Square. So those two things were notified. and submissions and objections from public interest associations ensued. So there was a bunch of submissions from Auckland Architecture Association, Auckland Civic Trust Incorporated, the Auckland branch of the New Zealand Institute of Architects about both of those processes. Also from Living Streets Aotearoa, Urban Auckland, you know Urban Auckland, also known regarding the port expansion judicial review proceedings, and the Urban Design Forum. So 6 groups have put up submissions and objections to both of those, and I wanted councillors to be aware of the level of interest that's embodied in that. Now what's happening next week, so that's the week starting on Monday, is that Precinct Properties has invited all of those submitters to Plan Change 79 in for a briefing. So Precinct Properties is approaching the submitters to brief them about what is proposed. City Centre Integration staff are conducting a briefing also for submitters and objectors about development proposals. That's happening next week as well. And Auckland Transport is organising a briefing for objectors to its road stop notice. And I just draw council's attention to the fact that any objections to the road stop notice that it doesn't accept are automatically referred to the Environment Court for decision. So that's an automatic reference to the Environment Court. So it's one of the risks that, if you like, council's whānau family face as a consequence of what's happening now. Now, just a little bit of this flashback. This is an aerial from your site, Council's GIS of downtown in 1959. It just shows, there's the downtown block, and it shows you little Queen Street running through there, 1959. All of that land was owned by Auckland Harbour Board then. And then what happened was that Little Queen Street was stopped, a road stop notice issued, stopped, and swapped to form Queen Elizabeth Square. Now, Queen Elizabeth Square is the same land area as Little Queen Street. So that's how we got Queen Elizabeth Square. Now, there's an issue about what happens with Queen Elizabeth Square now, and so in terms of the proposed Auckland Unitary Plan, what it says is, where a framework plan involves the relocation or reconfiguration of Queen Elizabeth Square, an equivalent size open space must be provided in the form of another public open space, new or upgraded squares, streets, lanes, etc. And then the most important thing here is collectively these alternate spaces should achieve a better street and open space network than is presently offered within or immediately adjoining precinct. So this is, if you like, just reminding councillors what a statutory duty is in regard to this. Now this image here is drawn from a publication put out by the Auckland Architecture Association. Its journal has a journal. This is in 1968. So you can see it shows what was then the tower there. Behind it is the ferry terminal. And there's Queen Elizabeth Square, and they're asking the question, why? And interestingly, in the journal, they run the song to the city. When you're alone and it's making you lonely, you can always go downtown. So this is kind of drawing attention to the old song that we all know and love. Go downtown, and you got worries, all the noise and the hurry seem to help, I know, downtown. So so this is run with their picture of it. And so you can see here, this was their bulletin 20, I can't read quite the number there, 22, that's right, 1968. And the whole bulletin was given over to the Auckland Architecture Association's submission opposing that tower going there because of what it would do to Queen Elizabeth Square. And they put up, and there were a number of other alternative designs that were put up. So there's your Queen Elizabeth Square with the ferry building and with the HSBC building, or Air New Zealand building as it then was, located so that it wouldn't cast a shadow over it, which was entirely possible at the time because the land was all owned by Auckland Harbour Board. So I just sort of giving you an indication of one of these associations' track record of interest in terms of this area. It goes back 50 years, and their concerns and their planning approach to what might happen down there. So they're still interested, of course. Now, so there is a common thread among those submitters that the commensurate provision of space for downtown, for Queen Elizabeth Square being lost is a very important part of their submissions. They're very concerned about that. And that's why I'm sort of reminding you of the history and just reminding you of what is a common part of these submissions. Now, second common part. This map many of you will have seen before. The line shows the old coastline, and you can see north of that all of the areas of land that were reclaimed by the Auckland Harbour Board then. And then a lot of those pieces of land are being changed now. So, for example, the Key Park precinct, which you can see, that's really where the Key Park precinct was reclaimed. So it was changed, and it was called a precinct, and there was a plan change map for that whole area. Same thing happened for Britomart. There was a precinct identified and a plan change map for the whole area. Same thing happened for the Viaduct Harbour precinct. Precinct is the plan change map for it, plan change for the whole area. And the most recent one, of course, is the Wynyard Quarter, and there's the plan change map for that. And that was the land being changed from, if you like, port uses to urban development of one form or another. So that's a little bit of that history. Now, in terms of regional policy statement, which is operative, then a statutory duty is existing urban areas proposed for significant redevelopment, such as where the redevelopment requires a district plan change, and downtown is one of those, are to be provided through the structure planning process that as a minimum meets the requirements of Appendix A structure planning. I'm not going to go into the detail here, but I'm drawing your council's attention to the fact that there's a duty on the council to approach the planning for downtown similar to how it's done the other areas. It mentions why you would do that as the intensity of high density centres and intensive corridors, and this is an intensive corridor because of the railway, bus, ferry and everything that comes through, increases through redevelopment. Design becomes increasingly important, maintenance, enhancement of built character, civic spaces, streetscape and pedestrian amenity. And in terms of the operative plan, which we have here, which comes from Auckland City Council, talks about the impact of private development on public spaces, built streetscape character, prime concern to the council, directly affects the quality of the environment. Design and appearance of new development will be influenced by the plan controls. So it talks about plan controls in order to ensure that new buildings don't adversely affect public spaces. And then probably the most important provision in the operative plan says certain parts of the central area have a definite character. Plan applies specific provisions to these areas termed precincts or quarters. And I've shown you 4 of the quarters for which plan changes were promulgated to make sure that the planning for all aspects of what happens in those were properly provided for and that the public were involved in those processes. And it has not happened for the downtown area, which is, if you like, the second major kind of concern that's been expressed by these submissions that have come from these incorporated societies. The only plan change that has been promulgated relates to Queen Elizabeth Square only, which is a little part of the whole. So just these last 2 slides, my final part of thing. So what we have ideally is what I would describe as, say, a balanced planning approach. So if you like, council and transport needs are met and planned for. Investor requirements are planned for, and public spaces and places are planned for in a balanced way. And that would be a balanced approach to planning. But what we have, current planning, is really, there's been strong negotiations between council and transport needs being met and investor requirements being met. But public spaces and places are falling through the cracks in this negotiation. And that's really at the heart of what's driven these submissions from these various parties. And as my last slide, we're here to help. And so the objective of this briefing really has been to kind of try and help councillors be aware of public interest in this, and help councillors to be aware of some of the things that are happening behind the scenes, so that you know that these things are happening and you can bear those things in mind in your considerations, and realise that these incorporated societies are here for the long haul in terms of this process, and want to do whatever they can to ensure that those public spaces and places are planned for appropriately.
Thank you, Joel. Appreciate you and making that presentation. Are there questions of Joel on this matter? None at all? Councillor Quaggs.
Yeah, and one of the earlier slides that Joel put up in regards to our statutory duty